Hello, I'm back again. So this is the third of my video series talking about the three pillars of my halcyon community: calm, compassion, and community. So I did calm and compassion over the past few days, and today I'm going to talk about community and why I think community is important to all of us. Um, Even if you're like me, quite introverted, we still want to have that connection with other people. I've got two great quotes here from Brené Brown that I just want to read to you, which talk about connection. She says, "Connection is why we're here. It's what gives us purpose and meaning to our lives." And she also says in another quote, "I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship." And to me, that's really what community is about as well, a place where you feel seen, heard, and valued, and you can give and receive without judgment, and you feel better by being a member of that group. Because human beings are social animals. We evolved in family groups and tribes, and we were always dependent on each other for safety, food, and shelter. There was safety in numbers, right? But as a society stopped being nomadic and became more complex when we started living in villages and towns and cities, uh, we started to live in smaller family units, but we still needed the company of others. And we became more dependent on our neighbours or local communities. And I think it's really interesting that prior to pandemic lockdowns, many of us hardly knew our neighbours. With most women working outside the home these days, often commuting long distances into a city to work and working long hours, the opportunity to get to know your neighbours was much less than it was in, say, my mother's time, or even, probably when I was growing up. Before I had children, I barely knew anyone in the place where I lived. In fact, I thought that most people in that town were older, because when I went out um, shopping at the weekend, or when I was out in the evening or the early morning, I only saw older people. And of course, that's because all the families were still in the house. They go out at different times of the day. So when I had children and stopped work, I was actually amazed to find how many families there were nearby, and in fact in my street, that I didn't really know about. My circle of friends were all people that I worked with, and because I worked in central London, they all lived all over the Greater London area. So we lived quite far apart, and we tended to socialise after work, stayed in central London. And so I see one of the big benefits of the COVID pandemic is that people have started to get to know their neighbours better and help each other out. I live in a cul-de-sac, and even though I'm at home most of the time, I think it's partly to do with the weather in Britain as well. I talk to my neighbour when we're both out in the garden, but it's been really noticeable over the winter how much more difficult it is to keep connected with our neighbours because we're just not outside. So connection is important to all of us, and mostly we get it from our workplace these days. And of course, we haven't been going to work. Many of us haven't been going to work for months and months. But it's also important to have groups where you can be more yourself, places where you can talk about your feelings without judgment, be supported by people who actually get you and are ready to celebrate your successes, however small, and inspire you to do better. And that isn't always something you can get from your friends and family. Some people have hugely supportive families, I know that, but not everyone does. Because people who know you really well, people who are in your family, they're invested in keeping you safe. They want to protect you from risk, and they don't necessarily understand why you want to do something differently. Obviously, because I run a small business, I know a lot of self-employed people, and many of the self-employed women that I speak to, their families just want them to go and get a proper job so that they'll have a salary check at the end of every month. But of course, that's not what they want at all. It's said that you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. But you also need to be careful about choosing your friends. Who you choose to socialize with is a matter of self-care. And some people will drain you, and some people will uplift you. And you need to spend more time with people who uplift you and less time with people who drain you. And that may mean that you spend less time with your family. Now, if you do go out to work, if you're still going out to an office, you may have mixed feelings about your co-workers but working, does give you confidence and boosts your self-esteem as well as providing financial security, but you may not necessarily like the people you work with. And it makes a big difference whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, because extroverts thrive in groups and actually feel low if they can't spend time in the company of others. But even introverts who like being on their own, they need to be with other people from time to time. And that's why the lockdown has been, different for different people. As an introvert, you need to choose events that you attend really carefully, as they can drain your energy. And you may even have to have a strategy for coping. A couple of years ago, I attended a large conference in Toronto, which I really loved, and I took a lot away from it. It was a great conference, but there were hundreds of people there. It was big. And what I did was I made sure that I stayed in the same hotel that the event was being held in, so that at lunchtime and in longer breaks, I could go back up to my room and just be quiet. I had my minibar filled with sandwiches, so I could just go up and have my lunch. But the extroverts, they just carried on talking, networking, and mingling downstairs in the hotel. So you don't have to avoid events because you find them draining, but you have to learn how to manage your time and energy. And you also have to understand that doing what is right for you is the best thing you can do. So don't be pressurized by other people to say, well, you've got to come out, you've got to do this, you've got to attend this event, because you won't get any benefit from it. The world is currently designed for extroverts, and even though they may not be in the majority, it also varies from place to place. So in the US, depending on the study, 30 to 50% of Americans are introverts, and America is one of the most extroverted countries in the world. So some people are ambiverts. That's, you're not a bit of an extrovert, you're a bit of an introvert. You can cope well in either situation. But some people pretend to be extroverts because it makes their life easier. And that's particularly true in the workplace. And a lot of comedians are actually really introverted actors as well. And so they play a part when they go on stage. They're not really being themselves. But if you describe yourself as quiet, sensitive, serious, or studious, you're probably an introvert. And by the way, Susan Cain's excellent book, Quiet, is a really great insight into why you should and how you can tap into the power of being an introvert. Just because the world is designed for extroverts doesn't mean that there isn't value in being introverted. For the extroverts among you, being with others is the best thing you can do for your mental and emotional well-being, for your creativity and your productivity. For the introverts, the opposite may be true. And that's why some people have loved lockdown while others have hated it. Some people have said they can't get any work done at home. Others have said, I get so much more work done at home. And of course, there are many groups that you could join to get support and companionship from like-minded people. And these could be groups based on a hobby or an interest, a religion or a spiritual belief, exercise or activity. The possibilities are endless. But you might have to try out a few groups before you find the right fit. And don't be afraid to do that. Go somewhere once. If you don't like it, you don't have to go back. As I've said before, the workplace is often a place where friendships start, but of course, working patterns have changed. And for some people over the past 10 months have been non-existent. And there may be more working from home for everybody in the future. But of course, just because you work with someone doesn't mean you're automatically suited to be friends. You could be an introvert in an office full of extroverts or vice versa, and you might feel uncomfortable or out of place. And modern office practices, in particular open offices, open plan offices and hot desking, endless meetings, brainstorming, those are all designed for extroverts. And that's why, being at work, being in the office can be really draining for an introvert. Going to work or social events can be great opportunities to meet like-minded people. And again, extroverts will thrive. So if you're quieter and you have to go to something, you might want to go with a friend than alone. And rather than trying to speak to as many people as possible, you you do better speaking for longer to less people. The same is also true for networking events. If you have to attend those for work or business, extroverts are happy to work the room, but introverts should seek fewer but deeper connections. And again, try out several networking groups and choose the ones that suit you best. And of course, you might be retired or you don't work, so you could consider volunteering or charity work. And there's lots of groups as well that do charitable work. The Seroptimists for women in particular, I know that they meet regularly, and one of their main aims is to raise money for charity and support charities. And of course, there are many opportunities in the front and back office roles, and you may have valuable skills that you gain during your working life that a cash-strapped organisation could really use. And it's also great for your confidence and self-esteem. Now, Halcyon is an online membership community that I've run since the summer of 2019, and it's designed for busy women who are feeling overwhelmed by everything they have going on as they navigate their ever-changing lives. And we encourage members to share their challenges and successes, support each other through life's ups and downs, listen to each other without judgment, and inspire each other to do better, and be themselves. Because the benefits of a community that understands you really can't be underestimated. So we only admit new members twice a year, and the open period is only a few days. And one of those times is actually next week. So if you are looking for a new group or community and want to find out more, send me a message or get on the wait list at louisecarden.com/halcyon-membership-waitlist. And as soon as we are open for applications, I can let you know. So thank you for listening. I hope you've picked up a few tips out of this, and I will be back in a couple of days probably with another little video. So thank you. See you somewhere soon.